I was about 2 years old, my family ended up moving to San Antonio. Uh, Originally, my grandparents and mother, uncles, and family was all in San Antonio for a while because they were military. My grandfather was and worked at the Air Force bases there. But they moved back. So when I was 2 years old, ended up moving back to San Antonio and grew up on some 11 acres out there. And then the rest of my brothers were born in San Antonio. But I was born in California.
Okay. So tell us about the farm, the 11 acres of land.
So on the 11 acres, we actually had a farm. We were able to get ag exemption for tax purposes. So we actually had to have some sort of resource or agricultural, considered ag product or commodity. So we actually owned 30 Angola goats, which are goats that actually have a lot of fur, and so they kind of look like sheep, but they have ram's horns and are actual goats, and they can actually be shaved and their hair be collected for wool and sold. So we would actually, I was too young to ever do that, but we would actually shave the animals and sell the hair to the local farmers market area. And then we also owned 3 donkeys because there was actually a lot of coyotes would roam around the property. I mean, even though we had 11 acres, our nearest neighbor was 80 acres away. So there's a lot of just open fields and empty prairie grasslands and some tree lines. So coyotes would try to come and get the goats. So we bought some donkeys as actual protection. We bought 2, male and female, ended up breeding, and we had 3 in the end. My mom also really loved huskies, so they started with a couple huskies. By the end of it all, we had like 9 of them as well on the property.
So maybe I'm just unfamiliar, but how do donkeys prevent coyotes from attacking the farm?
They're actually pretty defensive, protective of their territory. They're actually very territorial, and if you create a bond with them, they're actually they're as much as people are like, oh, stupid, jackass. The term comes from that. Well, it's more they're stubborn, but they're not dumb. They're actually pretty smart, and they want to protect their territory, and they'll protect whatever they've made as their home. And so if coyotes did come in, because they were all in one big pen we had, they would stomp them to death. Yeah, they would go after them to defend their territory. So, well, most of the time that didn't even happen because they would just not come near because the donkey would go over there and kind of don't come in here kind of a thing and keep the coyotes out.
Okay. Interesting. Interesting. All right. So, tell us, you were a child actor. Let us hear about that.
So yeah, at the same time that we had a farm, we ended up actually joining a local talent agency in the city of San Antonio, and it was actually my grandparents, my parents, uncles, my dad, my brother, older brother. We were all doing commercials for the area. Some of us were actually in TV shows, a couple episodes of things that were back in the early 90s. I personally was in a few commercials for the local hospitals, the Methodist specifically hospital of the area, and also was in the commercial for when they renovated the Tower of Americas, which is a tall tower in San Antonio that has a restaurant on the top that rotates so you can see the whole city while eating dinner. And when they renovated it and were opening brand new, they were shooting the first commercial for that renovation. And I was actually a child sitting at the table eating dinner for the commercial. And I remember, I don't think we got paid for that, but they gave us several dinners for free to go eat there. Well, they may have paid us a little bit, but I don't. I was a child. I didn't really know how much we were being paid. And then I actually ended up being in a movie with a bunch of. It was actually a foreign film. Chinese actors out in the middle of nowhere, Texas. And for a long time, I didn't even know what the movie name was. No one told me. I know my grandmother said a couple times, "Oh, it was Once Upon a Time in China, I think," or something like that. And I'm like, there's no way. That's a movie with Jet Li. There's no way I'm in a movie with him. And we had lost, when I was actually trying to figure it out later in life, we had lost my resume, basically, of all the things I was in for films. And so I didn't know what it was called. But eventually, I found out, I started like Googling, and I found out there was one sequel that was made to Once Upon a Time in China called Once Upon a Time in China and America. And they had a cast listing, and I saw my name on it. And I was like, no way. Like, I know what I remember doing for the film, but I was, no, this couldn't be it. So, it was on some Hong Kong website that had the cast listing, and I ended up finding the movie on Amazon. And my mom bought it for my birthday one year, and found out, yeah, that's exactly what it was. I remember everything from back then doing the filming, and sure enough, it is a Jet Li movie. And so that was pretty exciting.
I bet. Definitely. So you had an experience that you did with NASA. Tell us about that.
Oh yeah, so later in life, ended up moving shortly from San Antonio. Not shortly, early 2000s, moving from San Antonio to Houston, and went to school here. Moved to an actual suburban neighborhood, totally different from what I was doing before. And while going to high school, I had this opportunity. There was a program for kids who could apply between their junior and senior year for this opportunity to do work with NASA. And it wasn't just a simple sign up and get into kind of thing. You actually had to sign up and then basically take this like class while you're still doing normal high school stuff. And once you kind of pass through that, then you actually had to write a letter to your local, actually to the senator of the state of Texas, and get him to actually sign off and say that you can be in the program. It wasn't just simply, oh, pass all this stuff. You also had to do that step, and then you get selected, and then the state of Texas pays for all of it. Pays for wherever you are in the state. They fly you in, or you could drive in and they reimburse you to here in Houston to the Johnson Space Center. And from there, they had basically week-long summer camp that was really an internship, as they called it, because it was not just some simple summer camp. It was actually quite a collection of pretty smart kids who came together to do this kind of mission, mock-up mission to Mars. and the whole thing was help funded by the Houston Livestock and Rodeo. So even though it was some of state money, it was also some of their money, to give young people a chance to get their feet wet in science